So let's get started.
Okay.
So hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the YCPA podcast. My name is Hiting and I will be your host today. And today for this episode, we are with the one, the only Tiffany Lai. So
Hi.
Tiffany, please introduce yourself to our audience.
My name is Tiffany Lai. For those who don't know me, I was born and raised in Montreal. I'm a full-time content creator. I've been doing this for 5 years now, full-time. It took a journey to get here, but I'm happy to be here.
Took a journey to get here.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I would say that coming from first-generation immigrant parents, I always envisioned doing a career in either something in the science background or in the medical field. I studied 2 years of nursing at McGill University, and then I switched to computer science at Concordia for 3 years. Then my last year of Concordia was when I decided to pursue this full-time.
Okay, so you kind of tried a couple of things, decided that was not for you. Why content creation?
I started Instagram. I started Instagram like everyone else. It was just an app that was brand new. Everyone was just dabbling in it. For me, I kind of used it as a creative outlet because, like I said, my background was very science oriented. So it was just a way to explore more of my artistic side.
I see. So how long did you do part-time or kind of dabble in it before you decided to go for full-time?
I would say that I started to take content creation a little bit more seriously when I first started nursing school at McGill. That's when I saw that my audience was slowly accumulating because I was posting more about myself, more about fashion, which is what I'm really passionate about. But then I would say it really, really took off and had a great momentum during my last year of Concordia.
Okay. Yeah. Can I ask you why you decided to go full-time? Because it's quite at the beginning of Instagram. It's like you're not too sure.
It was very, very new at that time, especially since, now that I've been doing it for 5 years, and back then, 10 years ago, it was really unheard of. Like the OG influencers would be the YouTubers that I'm sure you grew up watching, so did I. Honestly, it was just a leap of faith, and I saw that I was making a full-time salary, just doing it part-time while doing school full-time. So I thought, you know what, school will always be there. If I want to go back, I can always go back. But social media, you never know how it's going to change, if I'm going to get the same momentum that I was getting. So I just decided to take a leap of faith.
And 5 years later, here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. And like, it's so good to see someone from Montreal, but also from like a diverse background.
Yes. I think it's important to me because social media really has changed my life, not just career-wise, but also personally, because growing up, I never really saw myself in the standard media, in typical Hollywood beauty standards. So for me, when I first started to really immerse myself in the world of social media, I saw so many girls and guys from different ethnical, cultural backgrounds that I could relate myself to.
That's great.
Yeah.
You mentioned a bit first at the beginning that you were a first-generation immigrant.
I'm the child of first generation.
Okay. So
right, because first generation is
that would
those
be your parents.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense. So you were technically, I guess, second generation.
Yes.
Can I ask from what ethnicity your parents are from?
So my mom is Vietnamese. She immigrated to Montreal. Actually, her family is the first boat immigrants from Vietnam that came to Quebec. They were actually in the newspapers and everything. So I find that really cool.
Yeah, it's great heritage.
Yeah, and my dad is Chinese from Hong Kong, but he was actually born in Jutlan in Saigon. So he knew how to speak Vietnamese at a very young age.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you speak Vietnamese?
Yes, so I speak English, French, Cantonese, Vietnamese. So I would say my strongest languages are English and French, then Cantonese, and then Vietnamese.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
How do you think, how do you feel like all this Asian heritage, all these cultures, diverse background, how this has shaped you as an influencer and shaped your content?
I would say that it definitely helps in terms of me standing out. Because there is, a lot of competition in my work field. It really shapes on the type of content that I create. I try to bring ties to my cultural background, whether it's food or, my past struggles growing up as a minority in a very predominantly white culture.
Definitely.
I know recently my platform has kind of changed a little bit because I started to bring more interpersonal issues and talk about them more on my platform, like, being the eldest daughter, speaking a little bit more about my Chinese heritage. So yeah, I would say that's how I do it.
I understand. Well, that's so cool that you feel comfortable enough with your audience on your platform to share this. And how would you say like all this change, all this like new content, how has that been perceived by the audience generally?
It's been very, is gratifying a right word to say it?
That's good.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
And very wholesome because I would get a lot of people from different ethnic backgrounds that would come up to me and tell me that they really resonate with my eldest daughter trauma, my eldest daughter issues. And I think as, the older sister that I am, I find that it's just, I can't even put it into words. It's like, it's so emotionally, like it fills my emotion cup, like it makes me full.
Absolutely. It's like you're putting yourself out there and people relate to you and they find you, like they understand what you're going through. And it's a kind of this community that you're creating afterwards.
Exactly.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So going back to a bit what you said that you use a lot of like, you'd like to promote these different social issues. You talked about your Chinese background.
Right.
Why is it important for you to use your platform to kind of bring awareness to these kinds of situations that is happening?
So I think the main difference between Western culture and Asian culture is that Asian culture really emphasizes on community, and community just plays such a big role personally, but also in terms of just social issues and social injustice. I don't think we're free until all of us are free. All of us are free from oppression, from discrimination, from the racism that we experience on a daily basis. And growing up, I struggled a lot with identity. Obviously now, like Montreal has always been a big city with a lot of different cultures, but I do find that it has changed a lot in the past years for the better.
Yes.
But I would have to say that when I was younger, I struggled a lot with my Asian heritage and my Asian culture. And it's sad to say, but it's just the reality of it. And I would never want someone to hate their cultural background because they never saw themselves in mainstream media or,
Definitely. I feel a lot what we were saying. Growing up, we never really saw people that looked like us, people with our same values and culture growing up. So kind of like you always wanted to push that down, that part of you. But it's such a beautiful part of us. It's part of who we are. It's part of where we come from, which is why it's so important for have that representation.
Of course.
Especially in social media.
Yeah, and I do believe that a strong identity helps with a stronger community. And the stronger our community is, the better resources we have internally and externally to help other groups as well. So actually, I want to take this time to say I'm very passionate about what's going on in Gaza. So I just want to say free Palestine, all eyes on Congo, SOS Venezuela, free Sudan. I think that as minorities, we should really stick together.
Support one another.
Exactly.
Completely agree. Thank you for that kind message.
Of course.
So you've been doing this for 5 years full time. Have you seen a bit of a change throughout the community regarding Asian voices and regarding Asian social issues?
Definitely. I would say people are a lot more comfortable with using their voice. And I was actually talking to other influencers during my New York trip. And it's funny to see like the difference between just like the social struggles that we face. Like I was with 2 other Black influencers from Toronto, and they were telling me how they can't necessarily act like a white man because they can come off and be perceived as aggressive because they're Black. And a lot of times, like it's not just, you know, their struggles as being a woman, but you add another layer of being, you know, African American to it. But for us as Asians, I feel as though like our parents' generation and even our grandparents' generation, they were taught to, you know, like not make a scene and to, you know, just accept it is what it is. And the newer generation of, you know, of us,
yes,
we're so strong and to use our voice to talk about injustice that we face on a daily basis. And it's just really incredible to see that happening online and offline.
That's really well said. Thank you. So you mentioned that you just came back from a trip to New York.
Yes.
I imagine that was part of your work as an influencer. Do you travel a lot as an influencer?
Yes, I do travel a lot. I would have to say I'm very lucky to do what I do. And not only that, but to do what I love. I truly believe this is my dream job, and the fact that I get to work with so many amazing brands, have a platform to come here to speak about, you know, my career, to connect with so many different people on a day-to-day basis, and to travel and to have the liberty of being my own boss, making my own schedule. I count my lucky stars every day that I get to do this for work.
That is amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
So, as an influencer, I imagine that you do have a pretty big platform now on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. So why is this? First of all, I'm supposing that this community is very important to you, but how do you interact with them? How do you connect with them? And how do you stay kind of up to date with what's going on?
Like I said, us Asians, we focus a lot on community, right? So I try to reply to every single comment that I get, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. I also try to reply to every single direct message that I get as well. If I don't answer, it's probably one I don't have time, or I didn't see it. But busy. I really try to connect as much as I can. And obviously, whenever people come up to say hi, to introduce themselves, I always take time, no matter how busy or if I have to go somewhere, I always at least try to connect personally in person, because it's so rare for me to get those type of in-person interactions, because most of my work I do is online, right? Of course. And I also try to create different types of content online, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, on YouTube, so that people can get to know me differently.
Yeah, different sides of Tiffany.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So as you mentioned, your work is very much online.
Right.
So kind of how do you draw the line of what you decide to keep for your private life and what you decide to share with your hundreds of thousands of followers?
I think there's a fine line between work and pleasure for me, because a lot of what I do and what I share online is I would say it's like actually 100% personal.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. But I would have to say, if I'm having dinner with friends, family, or even with other influencers for a work event, I would, like take all the content that I need to take, because I am on the job.
Yes.
But I won't be on my phone if I'm having a conversation with that person, or if I'm having dinner with that person, coffee with that person, lunch with that person, whatever it is. Like whatever social interaction I'm having, I try not to be distracted and try to
be present.
Be present,
Yeah.
exactly. And I've gotten a lot better to be mindful of being present, because like I said, a lot of what I do intertwines with my personal life.
Definitely.
I still have trouble doing that for vacation, because I find whenever I do go on trips, I want to share that part. But then I'm just like, well, I'm with my family or I'm with my partner, so I don't know what I should be sharing or what I shouldn't be sharing. But I think it's very personal. I would say like what I share online is actually 10% of my life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's not a lot for someone who kind of posts every day.
Yeah.
Who's very, very present, like you said. That's good. You still decide to keep a part for yourself.
Yes.
And that's, I guess, very important to have that balance.
Yes, exactly. I think it's just emotionally, mentally, and physically, you can't be sharing everything online, because you can eventually burn out. And it's also a safety issue, you know, at the end of the day.
Definitely. So on the off day that you are not working full-time, you're not creating content for the full day, how do you like to relax?
I love to sleep. I love...
Yes.
If you guys follow me, you know that I have a cat, a very beautiful cat. He's the love of my life. I love napping with him whenever I get the chance to. I love taking him on little walks in our backyard.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think like that's a nice way for me to kind of recharge and disconnect in the morning, instead of just immediately grabbing my phone.
Absolutely.
I make my matcha, I put on his harness, and then we go on a little walk outside. It's not a big walk, it's like 15 minutes maybe. Just hanging out in the backyard outside. I also love to play sports.
Ooh.
So I recently got really into pickleball.
Interesting.
Pickleball, tennis. I love boxing, running, Pilates, bar. Honestly, I'm like very into like that active lifestyle whenever I can be. I also love to read, even just like going on long walks with friends,
just talking with a little latte or a chocolate matcha.
Yeah,
that's great.
Exactly.
That's perfect. So moving on about kind of your more personal life and your values. Who would you say had a big influence on you growing up? And how has this person influenced you?
I would say my biggest influence definitely have been my friends and my family. I'm not the type to put celebrities on pedestal. I've never really been that type. And I think it's also a little bit difficult for me to have been that type, because like I said, growing up in Hollywood, I didn't really see myself a lot in mainstream media. So I would say like a lot of who I am today is an accumulation of every single person that I've had an interaction with, whether like you've been in my life for 5 years, or like you're still in my life, or we had a falling out. I think who you are as a person is very much so shaped by the influences around you.
I feel like that's so well said, because like we're such a community where as human beings, we love to interact with people, and from every single person that we meet, we kind of take something and we make it our own.
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful. So I imagine that throughout your 5 years, you have met a lot of people.
Right.
You have seen a lot of different types of people, interacted with them, worked with them.
Right.
How would you say you have changed throughout this 5 years as a person, as an influencer, as a content creator?
I would say with social media, I was always an open person, and I think that's because of my background and because I was kind of forced to be very open as a minority. But I am even more open to this day, like very open in terms of other people's views, because you never know what that person is going through, the type of background that they come from. But I would also say that I'm a lot more guarded as a person, only because I think in a career where everyone's kind of chasing numbers, chasing the next paycheck, chasing the next contract, you never really know other people's true intentions. And it's not to say, like, some of my closest friends are other influencers that I've connected with online, but you also don't know, like I said, people's true intentions.
That's very well said. Very, very well said. So I guess that you kind of learn as you go on this job a lot.
Right. But I think that can be applied to any job, though. I think that can be applied to any career field that you take, because there's only so much theory that you can learn in school, and it's only when you're forced into the work field that you actually learn what the job entails.
That's interesting. And it's such a new job. You don't really have a guideline,
Yes,
a blueprint.
exactly.
It's kind of like doing your own thing. And
yes, for sure. Like, I'd have to say that being an influencer, being in this industry, it was a lot more trial and error, probably, than most jobs, but it's very rewarding.
So for the kind of people out there that are thinking about skill and going into content creation, would you have any tips for them, especially if they come from like a more diverse background where you do not have that much representation? What would be your little tips and tricks for them?
I would say that your diverse background is your strongest tool. It is what's going to make you stand out in a pool of other talents. And to be consistent, to work hard. I know it can be really scary to make the jump, but it can be really rewarding if you put in the work and if that is truly what you want to do at the end of the day.
That's great. Just follow your dreams.
Exactly.
Perfect. Looking ahead, I imagine that you have so many great projects coming up.
Yes.
Do you want to give us a little sneak peek of what's coming up and what are you excited about?
Well, for those who don't know, I bought a house last year.
You did.
And I am currently undergoing renovations. So there has been a lot of documentation for that.
Okay.
So I just have to sit my ass down and edit everything, but there's going to be a lot of things revolving around the house.
Exciting.
Obviously, a lot more travels as well. But next travel place, I'm actually going to France.
No way.
Next
when?
week on Saturday. Yeah.
Where?
I'm doing Nice, Cannes, and Paris.
That's beautiful. And in fall, you get to see all the, oh my God, that's going to be amazing. Are you excited?
I'm super excited because it's my first time in the south of France. Obviously, I've been to Paris before many times for work, and it's going to be in celebration of my 4 years with my partner.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Last little question regarding the future. Do you see that maybe the role of influencer might evolve in the future? And if yes, where do you see it going towards?
I don't think influencers are ever going to be out of business or it's going to be a fad. I think I've heard this since the beginning of my career, and it's been 5 years I've been doing this full time now, but 10 years since I started taking content creation seriously. I would just have to say that there's going to be more rules and regulations just when it comes to gifting, contracts, taxes. Like, I still don't know what I'm doing with my taxes. You know what I mean?
Does anyone really know?
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. But I think there's just going to be stricter guidelines. For sure.
That's good.
But in terms of just like the longevity of being an influencer, of it being a career, I don't think that's going to change.
That's good. Glad to hear that. Anything else you would like to share with the audience before we kind of wrap it up? Or else we can cut it too.
No, just I guess like thank you to everyone that has supported me so far and that have given me a platform and the people that have followed me since day one. I think you guys are the real OGs, and I'm just very happy to be where I am today.
A lot of gratitude. We
Yes,
love
exactly.
that. Well,
Yes,
thank you so
exactly.
much for being
Thank
on this
you.
episode, and it was lovely getting to know you better.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.